In Stuart Mills, spokesman for physioroom.com, and Stuart knows all about this story involving Manchester City. Stuart, thank you for taking the time to speak to us this evening. How stark were the statistics surrounding Manchester City then and their relative lack of injuries last season?
Well, what we did at physioroom.com was look at the serious injuries. So we didn't look at the knocks and bits of those. We stripped those out of the data, and what we looked at were injuries that were over 2 weeks, keeping a player out for over 2 weeks of the season. And Manchester United had 39 serious injuries, whereas Manchester City had 7 injuries.
Wow.
So the huge sort of discrepancy there. So looking at the number of days that kept players out of the team, it totalled only 186 for City, whereas Manchester United were 1,681. So a huge discrepancy there in the number of days out. As you mentioned there were a couple of sort of serious freak injuries, if you like, with Nemanja Vidic and Darren Fletcher, as previously been mentioned. So it did skew it slightly. Another sort of slight sort of discrepancy to the data is Manchester City did declare Owen Hargreaves fit as well, saying he wasn't getting in the squad.
Yeah.
And they gave testament to that when he played in the Carling Cup and other games. If he'd been playing regular Premier League football, would he have been fit? Maybe not. He may have been joining their injury list, but they did have a bigger squad and the luxury of that as well.
It's interesting that. Do you see big trends across the leagues generally with certain teams always doing well injury-wise? Because it's perceived as bad luck, isn't it? But I remember Tottenham having bad injury problems down the years, particularly Joe Francis was there, was it?
Yeah,
all
the time, yeah. But then Newcastle had it as well, and they tried to say it was their training ground, which the pitch wasn't up to the standard, and all these things come into it. So, you've got to be careful of what the training you're actually doing as well as the nutrition and all the sports science side of it.
Stuart, what have you found then? Is there general trends from season to season? Certain clubs tend to do better in the injury stakes?
I think there is a general sort of trend around some of the bigger clubs whereby they've got a huge squad and there's a lot more media attention to them. So, for example, if a player's played in the Carling Cup, for example, for Manchester United, it's counted more as an injury as well. So it just sort of slightly skewed for the bigger clubs, but at the same time, you would expect some of the bigger clubs to have made the investment that Manchester City have and the improvements to their sports science and medical teams.
You mentioned Owen Hargreaves there as well. Obviously, one of those players, I suppose, like Darren Anderson, probably even more so than Darren Anderson in terms of injury proneness.
Sick note.
Yeah, sick note. He's always fit for the major tournaments, it seemed, back in the day. Yeah. I think he only retired when he was 36 or 37, wasn't he? He was still playing
in Bournemouth.
Yeah. So he did well. But I wonder, Stuart, do you think that it's about signing the right players as much as it is about generally keeping them fit? Is it about the research that goes into looking at players' history and also the medical examinations they have to undergo?
Definitely, and it's really interesting that people are looking at Robin van Persie at this moment in time, whose injury record isn't the best.
Yeah.
It's difficult not to sort of look at him when he's been Player of the Year last year, but at the same time, his injury record is there for people to see. If you look under currently Arsenal at physioroom.com and under his injury record, it's pretty ongoing through the seasons.
It's interesting. That's a good point, John, isn't it? I mean, Robin van Persie, there's an argument there that his one good season of fitness yielded 30 goals in the Premier League Golden Boot. Is it worth cashing in on him?
Well, I know it's an interesting point that Stuart makes there, really. I mean, it's one season in 8, and I imagine that the sort of potential suitors, those 3 clubs, have thought long and hard, and that's surely been reflected in their bids.
Yeah.
Because they're all on the low side. One thing I was sort of intrigued also was Jack Wilshere. I mean, I don't know whether Stuart, you have a view on kind of where he goes from here. Whether it's an injury, I mean, it's a stress injury. Is it one that always has to now be managed throughout the rest of his career? And what was to blame for it in the first place, perhaps?
I think with Jack, Arsene Wenger is showing a lot of caution. He did come back probably. Well, hindsight's proved he came back too early last time, and it's a case whereby Wenger's being rightly cautious, and it could be a couple of months before he puts him back into first-team action. But at the same time, it could be, results could go against Arsenal like they did early last season, and display at Old Trafford probably sort of puts more of an emphasis on players having to return a bit quicker.
Yeah, they've had Eduardo injured, haven't they, as well? They've had Aaron Ramsey with a bad injury, Arsenal.
Yeah.
What about Manchester United? You mentioned the injuries, obviously had the Nemanja Vidic long-term one, but Chris Smalling again this week, another injury. Is he someone that's cropping up a lot, physioroom.com, and a potential worrying signs there for his future development, Stuart?
Well, he had a groin injury prior to the Euros, which kept him out there. It was sort of a 4-week type injury that kept him out of the Euros, and he was back in training, and he's incurred a metatarsal injury. So he'll probably be out for 2 to 3 months now with that particular injury. So it's unfortunate for a young player, but a metatarsal injury is one of those that tends to be more common in the game, or more commonly reported in the game
type
these
of boots,
days.
Well, there's no protection on the boots these days, Stuart. It's on the top there. If someone stands on your foot now, it's very light and no protection, and it's just an unfortunate injury. One of
12
those,
stone
isn't it?
of weight on there,
But you have to say the thing is with the likes of Van Persie and that, maybe Arsenal have got it right this year with the way he's trained. And I think as you get older, as a sportsman, you get older, you know your body more and better than anybody else.
It's interesting because maybe Stuart can sort of confirm this, but Ryan Giggs, you remember him sort of 10, 12 years ago, repeately hamstring problems.
Michael Owen as well.
Figured out to his driving style, wasn't it, or his seat position in his car?
Well, they did that a lot when I was there. They were talking about what car do you drive? You drive, a BMW, a Mercedes, or whatever. A lot of people with a certain car they were driving were getting problems with their backs, and they were actually some clubs went to the manufacturers and said you need to change these seats. Our players are getting seriously, and some managers were putting on pressure, change your car, get a decent seat, and all that stuff. But I just feel that now the sports science now and the aftercare is so much better than it was. But also, you have to say, Ryan Giggs, he got into yoga, did all the stretches and stuff like that, and good on him, and he's still playing. That's why he's getting the rewards and captaining, GB at the Olympics starting on Thursday. So fantastic for him, and he's a model pro, I have to say. On the field, he's been absolutely astounding. Yeah,
and we should point out Manchester United, David Beckham still going strong. Paul Scholes has come back as well. So these guys into their late 30s, seemingly that there is, whether it's their dedication or whether it's the sports science era they've grown up with.
I think a bit of both. I think they've got that dedication and that will to win and that will to keep on playing and train hard. And all those guys, when I was lucky enough to work with them with the England squad, they worked harder than all the other players. The Man United boys had this inbred, through Fergie, that they trained as hard as they did in the games. They didn't fob it off in training. They really went for it and did it in the right way.
Well, Stuart, I want a quick word about the players that are notoriously fit as well, because we'll touch a little bit later on rumours that Frank Lampard, not rumours, but he hasn't ruled out potentially moving to the LA Galaxy. And Frank at 34, some people may raise sort of question marks about any club trying to sign him, but he's notoriously been very fit, very reliable, hasn't he? Was it 64 games once he went consecutively without missing one for injury?
Definitely. The style of player that he is, he tends to be more of the sort of covering the distance as well as a player. So it will sort of affect him as he does get older. He's not the sort of Paul Scholes type of player where he can sort of run the game from not moving around the pitch as much. But yeah, Frank's had an excellent injury record over a number of seasons. But they did start to creep in last year, and it was one thing after another. And it may be a sort of a sign to him that it's the start of further problems.
We should see. Stuart Mills, spokesman for physioroom.com. Very good to speak to you tonight, sir. Thank you for your time. Interesting discussion.